Hello again, my friends. How's everybody doing today? Carpo here, and well, I'm making this video about bettering life. I'm just going to go right into it. I made these yesterday. I was in one of those modes where I just have to write, and I try to utilize those whenever I can. There's nothing worse than having the artistic desire and not being able to say create. Say you're at work and you just feel like painting, it's not an option, but when I'm at the right point in time, I like to write as much as possible. So I did a couple pages here that are just basically notes that I took, and it was yesterday afternoon, so at this point I'm going to have to kind of go back and remember exactly what I was trying to, confer. So these are just notes I took, because I thought, with all the things that we talk about, YouTube and elsewhere, and all the self-help stuff out there, I try to avoid self-help. I point out things that I've found useful in my life, and if it works for somebody else, then so be it. But I will never sit here and say, you have to do this to be happy. But these are things that I've found that it can actually improve our lives, and after all, isn't that what we really want to do? So, the first one is, can we reconcile order with disorder? And it's because chaos and order are two sides of the same coin. Chaos is defined by compared to order, and order is defined by comparison to chaos. You cannot have one without the other. Understanding this is very important in my eyes. The idea that we have the yin and yang within everything. And seeing that, it means that we don't get so upset about the fact that there are opposite viewpoints of ours, or difference, We can be very scared of things we don't understand, and I think it's important that we work together as a people to realize that we all have the same shortcomings. We already know the truth inside us. We already know what's right, and from our heart, we can usually accurately gauge whether a choice is a good one or not, and I would say that there's a certain amount of learned behavior we have to have in order to make those choices. But if we have I think that even if we're given a decent upbringing and understanding of the world, we're well aware of the decisions we make and how they impact us. So the truth, what we know is the truth in our own minds, is obscured by our desires. It's obscured by our desire not to just have things, which sometimes that can be true. Like a person who is all about money, even at the cost of the fellow man, may say, hey, I've got to get mine, but it might be something more like our desire to be right, or our desire to not be embarrassed. So we, create a delusion, or say things that we don't mean, or we know what's true. And I think the more honest we are with ourselves about those things, the easier it'll be for all of us to get along. Because these truths are starting to come out now with the internet and the connectedness that we have. It's nothing new. It's not that we're changing in this new world. It's that the world's revealing who we already were. The mind is a filter, not a projector. And what I mean by that is this is a belief, of course, rather at least a theory, the idea that our minds seem to be more than just projecting our reality. It would seem that they're filtering the reality that's being presented to us. So without getting too technical on that, what I mean is, for example, when a person takes psychedelics, many of those filters are removed. These filters that keep us from, say, thinking about the past, the filters that help us to see just the patterns we want to see, confirmation bias, to ignore other patterns, or to see things in a way that they're not. So you can open up your mind to the point where you can see things differently. And that tells me that the mind is filtering things rather than projecting them. And that's why reality can be adjusted in a way. And this isn't just compounds or chemicals. I'm talking about meditation, mindfulness, awareness. If you spend a couple of days just seeing yourself and really paying attention, you'll grow from that. If you do it for a few weeks, you'll grow even more. If you do it for a few years, then you'll start to see real changes, long changes that can be permanent, And my example would be, sometimes people get really excited to change something for a week. Maybe they decide to try a new diet or something. They get really excited because there's a little bit of placebo, a little bit of the act of doing something, the novelty, and we reward ourselves with, feeling good or being really focused on something. And then when it fails us, we go back to the way we were before, and we kind of forget about that. When we get something permanent that, we're not going to lose, that's when I think that we really have something. In other words, it's kind of like the difference between psychedelics and true enlightenment, if you will, where a person can catch a glimpse of this reality, but if you need to catch a glimpse in order to see where you want to be, and then you can choose to live that lifestyle. And when I was younger and I took psychedelics, I said, I wouldn't want to live this way all the time, but I want to live with this awareness all of the time, or at least most of the time, and made a conscious decision to start thinking that way. So, and I've gotten like 3 things into these pages, and I'm sure this will probably end up being a long-ass video. It's all sweat. I'm sweating. It's all hot out here. So, I'll just keep going. The balance of chaos and order, don't lean too far in one direction. And that's back to the yin and yang. This becomes obvious and apparent to anyone who's observed how far people will lean in a particular direction to where they might even become violent to defend their views or their beliefs. It means that if 2 people have completely opposite viewpoints on something, which it's a different story altogether, there really aren't opposites in viewpoints, there's just what we prescribe to it, but when you lean too far in one direction, you fall over. I guess that's enough said. Understanding that there's a balance, because not everything is so simple and cut and dry, and I think we all know that. It's just like the old liberal conservative thing. The word liberal is being thrown around like it's some kind of bad word. But the term, by definition, has many different meanings. And I was reading this thing that said you can't be a liberal of one kind and also be a liberal of a different kind. Such there's social and economic liberalism. And so, by defining someone as a liberal, you're not defining anything. It's a meaningless word. But it's used as an extreme left type thing. Just like, the people on the extreme right have moderate views too, many of them. So everybody gets lumped together. So it's important not that we don't lean too far, but that we don't assume that everyone else is too far in one direction or another. And to call them out when they are, if we can, for the betterment of all people. We seek patterns and ignore others. As humans, we seek patterns that fit within our paradigm. We need our routines and our rituals, and the patterns help us to survive. So there's nothing wrong with seeking certain patterns and seeing things a certain way. It's just we ignore others by default when we do that. If you've ever seen one of those pictures of, well, I'm sure you have, there's one where there's 2 faces looking at each other, but if you change your perspective, it looks like a glass instead of 2 faces. There's another one where the picture could either be a rabbit or a duck, depending on how you look at it. And if you try, no matter how hard you try, you can't see them as both at the same time. Your mind does not allow you. People can pretend that they can, but you really can only see one at a time. You can go really fast between them. And there's many, many optical illusions like this, and this can be extended into many realms of our life, the other senses as well as our consciousness. That we can only be really thinking one way at a time. We can't hold alternating viewpoints. That becomes cognitive dissonance. So, next one is don't put labels on yourself and don't assume roles. And that goes back to kind of, like say the liberal conservative thing. Just be a person, but don't assume that because you're a man you should be doing this, or because you're white or black or green or tall or short. Like people used to say, are you going to play basketball? Because I was tall. I said, no, why? Because you're tall. I said, but I fucking hate basketball. Why would I want to play basketball? And, I never understood that mentality of because you look a certain way or have a certain physique that you should be interested in something. But that's how a lot of people think, It's like utilizing what you have towards a certain end, I guess. But the routine in home life is really important. And I heard somebody talking about this the other day, and on one hand I kind of disagreed, but I had to be honest with myself to say, yes, I love chaos and I love new things and novelties, but without routine we really do kind of get neurotic and go crazy. If you can't wake up and have your coffee and go about your day on your normal routine, unless you have something else to fill that, another novelty, something more exciting, then you can kind of lose interest after a while, kind of lose your way. Make sure the camera's still going. Alright, it is. Only a few more on the list here. The next one is cease judgment and understand fear. And that's pretty self-explanatory. I know that we will always judge people when we see them, and when we talk to them, we will always have judgments and assumptions. But we can be aware of that and try to confront it within ourselves, to not assume things about people or ideas or theories or anything, especially not just because it conflicts with what we want to believe. And understanding fear, and I was having a conversation with my mom about this earlier, because she was saying, you always use the word fear as if people are fearful, and I don't think it's fear. And I was like, well, people are afraid of change. People are afraid of more than just bodily harm, not physical or even mental harm, but changing our ways and altering our routines, which is why nationalism is so successful in convincing people that their country comes before themselves. That it's more important to defend this idea of what America is, let's say, than to defend your own sanity and what you know to be right in your heart. But if you understand fear and why people do the things they do, it's often because of fear of change or fear of death. And I know that's oversimplifying it, I realize that, but if you really look at things, most things can be traced back to a fear. Most fights, most animosity, most, conflict can be caused by fear in one way or another. Fear of losing your land, fear of losing your religion, So, avoid following one opinion or person. And I wrote, as a side note, use caution if critique of that person leads to attacks. And I think this is a really important one, because I wanted to make a video about this before, but there's a lot of people who will say, well, what do you think about so-and-so? A particular speaker, philosopher, teacher, whatever it might be. And like, for example, somebody asked me the other day about Jordan Peterson, and I'd heard of him, but I hadn't really heard him. So I listened to like several hours of his work, because I like to get really into somebody. And he's pretty much an ultra-conservative type person who has these phenomenal ideas about understanding yourself, being honest with yourself, many of these different philosophies of life that are great. But he's utterly opposed to, he's had a lot of conflict due to the LGBT community was all upset with him, and he had something about, safe spaces at college campuses. Many of the points he makes are really legitimate, but at the same time, it's not what the point you're making, it's the tact and how you go about it. So, but I also still continued to listen to him just because I wanted to hear what he had to say, to be honest with myself, to say, just because I don't agree with the person's policy on one point, I'm not going to just turn them off and ignore them. And that's how I am with everyone, even the speakers that I really like a lot. Most of them, there's something about them that just makes me cringe that I can't stand, with the exception of maybe Alan Watts. He just totally got it. But maybe the only thing I could say about him was that he made it a little too fun, but that was the Zen type of approach he had, so that worked. But the part about using caution if critique leads to attack, I've been to several videos from people who have a great following, of people who think that they're going to change the world, the kind of people who people say, you could run for president. And if you make a critique to a person on a forum, and then other people will say, well, I disagree with this, and they're respectful comments. Put it this way, the comment section on YouTube videos about a particular person or, a celebrity or somebody people follow, if the comment section is garbage, then there's something wrong with the person's method. Maybe that's oversimplifying, and there may be exceptions to the rule. I haven't found any yet. For the most part, if people are constantly attacking each other in the comment section, then often it's just garbage media or garbage, opinions that are maybe ostracizing or off-putting to other people or ultra-offensive, and I think tact is really important in how we handle ourselves. A good example would be like Alex Jones. Years ago, when I first discovered this guy, like a decade ago, I did make a couple comments to him when his YouTube channel was young, and he blocked me, I think twice, because of asking a legitimate question. But it wasn't just him, people like that. There's lots of these rabble-rouser types. Not all of them are out to cause any problems or just out to make money. They're just speakers that really believe what they say. But if it's super controversial, it's really important that we ask ourselves why, I guess. Knowing your own fears. I guess that's just to add to the other one about fear that I already kind of went into. Know your own fears and conquer the fear of death. And I won't even go into that because that's a very complicated subject that has its own. You never really conquer your fear. You just learn to cope with it. But you can do a damn good job of not stressing out if you pay attention to yourself. And the last one is derive meaning through expression, not oppression. And that one I meant find meaning in your life. Nobody's going to tell you, people will tell you what your life means and what you should be doing, but a person will never be satisfied if they just follow other people's wishes and they follow everyone else's rules and what they believe. If you try to ignore all the rules, then you'll live a lonely life too. So it's a matter of utilizing the components of this society that we deem worthy and deciding for the rest of it for ourselves, especially in spiritual matters. There are certain things that can be proven and others that can't. And if we're deriving our meaning through oppressing other people and not just expressing who we are, then we've hit a dead end. And that's kind of where we're at as a society, and I think we can do better. So that's it for my notes, and I also wrote a couple of little paragraph pages here. I figured I'm just going to read the first one and maybe the second one if I have time. And I say, always be open-minded, yet in control of your reality as much as possible. Listen to everyone and filter out what does not fit into what you know for a fact, but be honest. This requires a deeper understanding of ourselves and our world. If we discount everything one says because their values differ, we miss the truth. If we believe everything one says merely because it makes us feel better, we also fail to learn. Seek to reconcile darkness and light, and you will quickly learn one cannot exist without the other. Perspective is everything. All is one. And so I'm going to see how much time I have left here. So I have enough to read this home. Yep, looks like it. Camera just sucks. Really need to get a new one. But, you know, I like to live modestly and not spend money on shit I really don't need or want. But as long as it works, right? So this one is called Authority, According to Whom. And it's just a little, I guess it's just a little writing. It's a one-page thing I wrote last night. I didn't pre-read it. I haven't even read it since I wrote it, so I hope it's not like erroneous in here, but we'll see. Authority according to whom? Who is distinguished enough in life to tell others what to believe, how to live, where truth and happiness lie? And if such a person exists, why has mankind not found a universal path to order? Because chaos exists as its counterpart. Our individual plights differ along with our environments and circumstances. The reason some people resonate with large groups of followers is not because of what they teach us, but rather what they reveal within our own hearts through hearing others confirm what we already know, but did not realize. This means that the best teachers are never to tell us what to believe, but confront us in a way which allows us to find the truth within. This is the essence of Zen and should be the foundation of all religions. To think that we can find truth without the help of others, and the foundation of knowledge laid out by our ancestors, is of course absurd. We have no more wisdom than our experiences allow, and to live we must follow basic rules to survive. Matters of the spirit, however, require no lessons by humans. Indeed, we may find totems, chants, groups, churches, idols, books, and middlemen, such as popes or churches, useful in pursuing our own truth. We can learn lessons for coping and see how others have fared in this thing we call life. In the end, however, we answer only to what our hearts and minds can truly grasp, and to be sure, that is very limited. So, I hope you enjoyed my ramblings, but if you didn't, I don't really care. You know what I mean. I guess it's just great to have the freedom and the ability to come on and express myself here and share ideas for what it's worth, and hopefully if enough people do this and enough people continue to share their good thoughts, even being marginalized, even though somebody can make a YouTube channel 6 months ago about how to put on makeup tutorials and have millions of views in the trending section, but you'll go into the trending on YouTube and you won't see any philosophy videos. That's changing though. I'm starting to see a lot more like the School of Life and videos like that, great lessons in understanding ourselves. But the truth is that garbage media, garbage news, garbage TV has is still the central focus of a lot of people, and we're still wrapped up in shit like the Kardashians and Kanye West. These people mean nothing. They are nothing. And the idea that celebrities are somehow spokesmen for anything, I see why people get frustrated saying, what does Hollywood know about these politics or that? You know, actors are just actors. They're just people. But it's not about the actors. It's just about what we deem to be worthy to pay attention to. So just keep trucking is what I'm saying. If you're a thinking person, just keep sharing your ideas. Don't fall in and just get caught up in the current of bullshit. You know, because we're always happier when we do remain true to ourselves as best we can. Peace. Talk to y'all later.